It's broad daylight at McGinley's petrol station in Derry, Northern Ireland, at 12:40 p.m. on August the 17th, 2021. CCTV shows a small hatchback crashed into by a grey BMW, which caused the car to spin violently across the fuel station area. As a horrified mother pulled her small daughter from the wreckage, narrowly escaping more catastrophe, the scene was chaotic. But what looked like a traffic accident soon spiraled into something far more sinister. This was part of a bitter family feud that had been simmering for decades, and not a traffic collision as we first thought. 6 men, some masked, showed up at the pump area with far from amicable aims. Armed with crossbows, pitchforks, and handmade weaponry, they first charged at each other in a scene of total chaos. In the fuel station area, the chaos never stopped. It extended into a nearby shop where Garda later showed up and arrested several suspects. What appeared like a casual street fight was anything but. It was a brutal eruption of an ongoing feud between 2 branches of the renowned Stokes Traveller family, and the violence was far from over. The confrontation was personal. Members of the Derry Stokes group and their Longford rivals, 2 families deeply engaged in a fierce and growing battle, were involved in the incident. A woman with a broken ribcage was left after the terrible violence, and a man lay on the ground, his skull broken from repeated blows. This was a family argument that had reached its boiling point, and its effects were far-reaching. Gardaí swiftly apprehended 6 men involved in the violence. Among them was Kevin Stokes of Derry, who was charged for his participation. He was charged with fighting, possessing a crossbow, and inflicting serious physical injury with intent. Prosecutors claimed Kevin had assaulted an opponent lying helpless on the ground, a horrible action that left the victim with significant wounds. Kevin was with his brother Dylan Stokes, who was charged with dangerous driving in connection with the incident. Then there was a 14-year-old boy, whose identity was protected by law, accused of carrying a pitchfork and a knife in public and participating in the brutal fight. 2 other men charged were involved with the Derry Stokes side. The petrol station brawl was just the start. The violence did not cease with it. The battle later turned more violent in less than 24 hours. At a traveller camp on the outskirts of Derry, a fire started. 2 caravans burning were discovered by firefighters and Gardaí when they got to the scene. Clearly set on fire deliberately, the fire was no coincidence. The ruined caravans belonged to the Longford Stokes group, the same family who had fled their homes as they looked for safety from the previous day from Derry. The fire was connected to the fight, a revenge gesture intended to send a message. The conflict was far from over, and neither side could find a simple exit. Fortunately, firefighters were able to stop the fire from spreading to other surrounding mobile homes. Thankfully, no one was inside the caravans when the fire broke out. The message had, however, been sent. The violence would go on. For their bail hearing, the 5 people involved in the petrol station fight showed up in Derry Magistrates' Court the next day. Despite the brutality of the aggression, the court decided to release all 5 defendants on bail. Under severe circumstances, each was released, including a command not to have contact with the victims or any members of the competing family. The prosecution fiercely opposed bail, noting the continuous tensions and extremely real risk of more violence. According to a Garda detective's testimony, there was a high likelihood of retaliation should the 2 groups run across paths once again. The prosecution said that setting the defendants free could jeopardize public safety because innocent bystanders had already been drawn into the violence. It came out at the same hearing that at least 2 of the Longford Stokes men were wanted by authorities in the Republic of Ireland for major crimes. This only complicated the case, as legal actions were slowed down by the families living across several areas. The wheels of justice were turning sluggishly, and the conflict was far from being settled. The Stokes families were stuck in a battle not going away anytime soon, as the legal process dragged out. The media barely covered any immediate confrontation between the two groups for much of 2022 and 2023. While the Derry Stokes stayed in their home region, the Longford Stokes group had retreated southward. Though the families kept a low profile, tensions were building under the surface. Gardaí intelligence showed that the disputes had not been settled. Both sides were just waiting for the perfect time to strike once more. Although the public excitement had subsided, the animosity among the families had not vanished. Social media kept the argument alive. Messages and videos spread in which associates of both sides insulted and even issued fight challenges in person. Although these talks were primarily verbal, they kept feeding the conflict between the two families. The online sparring reminded frequently that the conflict was far from past. The growing anger had not been reduced. Rather, it was just poised for another outburst. And that chance came around by the close of 2024. Just 2 days before Christmas, news spread that two members of the Derry and Longford Stokes groups had set up a no-holds-barred fight. The location is Burt Cemetery, about midway between their two areas. This was a public challenge meant to permanently resolve old scores, not only an underground battle. Acting on intelligence, Gardaí arrived at the cemetery to find the two sides already locked in a savage battle among the tombstones. Among those engaged was Thomas Mongan, a member of the Derry Stokes faction, who was observed fighting another guy thought to be from the Longford Stokes side. The Gardaí quickly moved to stop the battle and physically restrained Mongan and other people using pepper spray. Mongan was apprehended on the spot. Some of the men ran when the authorities showed up. The other main fighter's identity was not disclosed, but the incident served as a serious reminder that the Stokes family conflict was still unresolved. The Gardaí had no choice but to intervene, as the violence that had characterized the confrontation at the fuel station and the arson attack was now pouring out into public areas. Thomas Mongan admitted misconduct for his part in the cemetery melee by April 2025. Though the sentence was suspended for 24 months, the judge chose leniency despite Mongan's long criminal record and gave him 2 months in jail. This relatively light punishment led to questions about whether the legal system was prepared to manage the growing violence surrounding the Stokes family dispute. The authorities were having great trouble containing the violence despite the explosive outbursts and open altercations. The Stokes feud went unaddressed as the year came to an end, and the judicial cases arising from the August 2021 fuel station battle were still pending. The trials were postponed, with no definite end in view. Particularly with the families residing in several areas, authorities worried that the cycle of retaliation could go on endlessly. Still to be answered was the question of whether the violence might ever be halted or the Stokes families were condemned to dwell in a never-ending circle of revenge. From a fuel station altercation, the Stokes versus Stokes battle had grown into a string of vicious confrontations, arson attacks, and no-holds-barred fights. The authorities had attempted to mediate, but the underlying hatred between the families made it almost impossible to stop the cycle. It seemed that this conflict would haunt Derry for years to come, as legal procedures took a long time, and public violence remained a very real threat. What are your thoughts on the ongoing Stokes family feud? If you like this crime story, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.